Julian on the brown note and the irony of Hunter Schafer. Should only trans actors play trans roles? I guess one of the ironies is where you place that only. Should only trans actors play trans roles, or should trans actors only play trans roles? Hunter Schafer isn't interested in playing transgender roles anymore. The 25-year-old actress, most recognised for her breakout role in Euphoria, HBO's Emmy-winning drama, no longer wants to be reduced to this element of her identity. In an interview with GQ, she voices her concerns about being recognised only as trans, especially by the media. She often avoids the word trans entirely in interviews, feeling that her gender identity shouldn't be the first thing that people mention. As soon as I say it, being transgender, it gets blasted off, Schafer said. It took a while to learn that. It also took a while to learn that I don't want to be reduced to that. I ultimately find it demeaning to me, especially after high school. I was sick of talking about it. I worked so hard to get where I am, past these really hard points in my transition. Now I just want to be a girl and move on. And Hunter Schafer has said that they only get trans roles sent to them. And interestingly enough as well, Billy D. Williams, a veteran actor, has also come out and said that, that actors should be able to play any role. He said, if I'm going to be creative, let me be creative as an individualist. I don't want to do anything based on this whole idea. You're a black person, you're a white person. I'm an artist. I'm a creative entity in this life. Going on the basis of, should white actors ever play blackface? And he was saying any actor should be able to play anything. Now, the irony in the Hunter Schafer scenario is sitting in the room as a giant elephant, which is that this whole notion of trans actors and who plays trans roles has been framed the opposite way round in recent years. And the notion of who plays what role has become this cool celeb in acting, which has exploded into this atom bomb of online, abuse and taking positions and so on. And people taking multiple positions that are contrary to, dependent on who's doing what. I've always said, and I'm bringing this up because I put a piece online a couple of years ago, which was that I didn't agree with the fact that only a trans actor should play a trans role. And I gave all of my reasons. Mostly, it's unartistic as well. Should a songwriter only write about their own experience? Should an author only write about their own experience? Or should you, as an actor, be able to actually inhibit the word act and play somebody who isn't yourself? But there's been a lot of right-wing abuse towards this notion, but I find myself uncomfortably on that side when it comes to certain aspects. So we have gone through this, this era best identified by the amazing South Park episode from last year about the Pandaverse, which is every time they make some really crappy reboot of something that didn't need remaking, they either gender swap, race swap, or sexuality swap the leads and go, ta-da, the film comes out, it's terrible. And one side accuses everyone that didn't go and see it of being a bigot, and the other side says, well, it's only rubbish because you gender swapped or race swapped the role. This sort of blew up around the awful Ghostbusters movie, not one of the last two ones, but the all-female Ghostbusters movie, which was just an abominably bad film. And for me, neither is true, because Ghostbusters was an abominably bad film. The Marvels was terrible. Madame Web was unbelievably atrocious. So it doesn't come down to the quality of the film being denoted by gender swapping or race swapping roles. This is entirely down to the fact the films are terrible. But at the same time, there's this incredible hypocrisy which goes, if you want to gender swap or race swap a role that was played by a white man, particularly a white straight man, it's lauded by the same people who would attack a white man being cast in a trans role. And that is flat out hypocrisy. It's maintaining two positions that are contrary at once. So it's really interesting. It's almost like a watershed moment that Hunter Schafer's come out and said that she doesn't want to do trans roles, it's going to provoke a lot more of a response than it's already got, because you're going to get people who are going to say, she should be able to get normal women's roles. I say normal, it doesn't matter what I say, I'll get accused of saying the wrong thing. Or cis women's roles, or biological women's roles, whatever term you use, you're going to get screwed up on. But they're the same people that would say only a trans person can play a trans role. And when I did my piece a couple of years ago, I said not only is it unartistic to say that an actor can only be pigeonholed into playing themselves, but it will lead to circumstances where trans actors only get trans roles. And I said that at the time, and now Hunter Schafer is saying that she only gets trans roles. You will only get, it's an extreme example, but disabled people only get in disabled roles, or I think, that might sound trite, but if you wanted to have a character who wasn't written as a disabled character, but was played by somebody that was disabled, instead you get them only getting the role where the defining characteristic of them is that they're disabled. Peter Dinklage is a good example. He's a very short actor who isn't cast in roles because he's short. He's such a brilliant actor. He appears in a lot of films, even stuff like X-Men, Days of Future Past. There was no element of his casting there. It was down to him being short. So it's very, the main point I made in the piece that I posted, equality isn't trans people only playing trans roles, or only trans people playing trans roles. Equality is trans people being able to play any role. And that's where this whole thing got really screwed up. And this has kind of blown a lid on it. And the other element to it as well, I think one of the biggest things that I did that last piece on was the trans play that was happening in the middle of COVID. So it might have been more than 2 years ago. One of the few plays that was actually launching, a big play, I think in Melbourne, which was a trans story. It was an international production and a famous story with the lead character being trans and so on. Trans activists in Australia killed it dead because the lead actor was only gay. So that wasn't good enough for them. They started attacking the production online, which had already gone through casting and rehearsals and was ready to go in the middle of a pandemic where virtually no plays were being produced anyway. And they killed it. And what's happened? Nothing since. They never got their story told. And the play didn't happen, and everyone that was working on it lost their jobs. So it's the people need to make up their minds on consistency here. Are we going to attack every single straight white male that plays a trans role, or a role where that character wasn't a straight white male? Or are we going to admit that trans people can play other roles than trans people, because they go hand in hand? And if you say, well, both are true, I support the recasting of every single white male role into anything else, but also they can't play roles that aren't white males. It's taking contrary positions, and now we're at a point where trans actors are saying, I don't want to be cast as a trans actor every time. But that's what's going to happen if you push the first point, and that's what actually literally has happened to Hunter. So I think this is a real watershed moment that's going to continually grab momentum. And one of the weakest points I see brought up all the time, every time that someone says, they've recast this person as... And there's a lot of hypocrisy here, because we've seen the casting of an Irish folk hero, allegedly, a ginger-haired, white-skinned, literally real person from Ireland from hundreds of years ago, as potentially the new lead in a new Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, with a black-skinned Nigerian British actress. So it seems like this idea of cultural heritage seems to be a one-way street when it comes to the other way round. But again, I support actors being able to play any role, based on their merit, based on interest in casting. But I don't support these people taking this contrary position all the time, where they'll celebrate a white-skinned, red-haired genuine, real person Irish folk hero being played by a black Nigerian British actress, but the other way around they would absolutely go screaming nuts about. And are they going to do that? Is somebody that isn't trans allowed to play a trans role as much as a trans person should be allowed to play every other role? That's equality, being able to play any role, not pigeonholing people based on their identity, or even not on their identity, but their sexuality or their gender or their race, which it might not even be for them there, and in Hunter's case, isn't their full identity, and they seem to be expressing that quite well now, and saying, this isn't all there is to me. But we've created a paradigm where it often is, and the hypocrisy with which we've greeted this issue over the last probably 5 years or so is kind of getting blown up a bit, I feel. Anyway,